Welcome to today's discussion on how to identify and use sleeper talent to accelerate digital transformation in your organizations. My name is Whitney. It's my pleasure to be your host today. And we're very excited to have you with us as we explore this conversation. We're going to hear about the findings from Forrester Consulting, and they've compiled these around solving the process and the workflow needs that slow down far too many organizations. Now, I'll draw your attention once again to the Q&A panel within Zoom. For most of you, that's either at the bottom of your screen or on a little mini window near the top. And I encourage you to drop your questions in there as we go. I'll be reviewing those and compiling questions throughout this discussion so that we can direct them to our two expert panelists at the end of our discussion. To set things up for us and give our topic good context, please welcome a passionate tech leader, the company builder, and the founder of HighGear, Vaughn Thurman. Hi, Vaughn.
Hi, Whitney. Thank you so much. Well, I'm really excited to have everybody here today and just want to affirm for you that you're in the right place. If you're focused on digital transformation, but you have a concern that tech isn't keeping up with the vision of your company, you're definitely in the right place. If you're responsible for operations and you see inconsistency in the way things get done and the fact that you can't get the support that you need for digital transformation as timely as you'd like, and you see it costing you time and money, you're in the right place. And finally, if you're a business analyst, if you're somebody who is or functions as a business analyst and you would really like to contribute more to the organization and you're looking for the support and outside validation that that's a good organizational decision, you're in the right place. We know time is of the essence. The items that keep us up at night are cost effectiveness, customer experience, employee experience. At the end of the day, we're competing for the best talent. The best talent we're hoping comes to our organization and helps us compete for the best customers. And yet we've got to do all this in a way that's cost effective. The market pressures are significant. But that got accelerated this year by COVID-19. It turned what was already an issue of time urgency into a crisis of time. The old way of looking at how to digitize processes in a process that went from months to years really has accelerated down to where it's got to go into hours and days. And we're having to get that work done in a situation where, frankly, there are more demands and less resources. The demands are increased because the IT professionals that we've got that the organization is waiting for to get these things done are now busy dealing with distributed teams and the security issues and complexities that come along with that. And you would think that if organizations are doing well in this time, as some are, or even if they're just cruising along as normal, but they're realizing this is their most urgent thing, they could just go and hire the people. But there's a market challenge. Developer birth rate, quite frankly, is too low. And it doesn't matter how bad you want them, they've got to be out there. Now, some people might say that patience is a virtue, but this all comes down to perspective. If you're the one waiting for the solution, if your team is struggling with inconsistent processes, if your organization needs to be able to get more done faster, more consistently under the market pressures you're under, it might not seem so comical or virtuous to wait. But let's turn it around and look, the IT folks have their own perspective on this as well. We have not gotten them the help that they need, but they see an endless list of demands coming in their door, and nobody's in the mood to wait. This story may resonate for you where your people, the organizational business unit people meet with business analysts. They describe a problem. They've got a vision in mind of kind of helpful technology. It's a picture's a little small there, but maybe you can kind of see the helpful robot. And the IT folks say, we've got it. And we move along in the process, but what we end up getting delivered is not what we expected. And we iterate through that process over and over again until everybody, the IT team, feeling like we get an endless list of one more change that's needed to actually meet the needs that we thought we understood in the beginning. And the business team saying, but you don't understand, this dotted I or cross T keeps us from being able to use the solution. And we get an organizational frustration that says there must be a better way. We know this is the case because we work with some of the largest organizations around the world to help solve this problem. We see this problem all the time, and I'm not showing off a list of people here who have this problem. I'm showing you off a list of people who've used HighGear to solve this problem. But it isn't just about solving the problem of accelerating digital transformation. It's about finding the resources necessary to get this particular kind of work done. We started seeing some of our most innovative clients and how they solved this problem by identifying a different type of person, not just the citizen developer, but somebody who was actually really close to the business, who might be hiding in plain sight and available to organizations just like them. This is the tool set. We're going to show a quick demo of this later after John presents his or delivers his findings. And this is just kind of a series of visual tools, platform, dashboard of work, visual workflow design tools. Our observations was that people could use a tool like this and empower business analysts or semi-technical managers who often function as business analysts to step up and save the day, and to really make a significant difference in the speed at which their organization could actually achieve digital transformation. One of the issues that we saw that organizations had to navigate was, how do I as an IT professional feel safe? How do I not turn something loose on the organization that begins to shorten the backlog of work requests without introducing a risk that's unacceptable to the organization? We're going to show a little bit, we'll skim by some kind of governance capabilities that we've got, but those are things that we'd certainly love to talk to somebody about more if you're interested in that. But we wanted to show that we could address the capturing of the skill set that already existed in the business to solve this problem, and that we had developed a hypothesis out of this that maybe every organization has this grade of sleeper talent, and that once they're tapped, once they're empowered, that they could actually become the organization's speed pass for delivering an entire category of digital transformation initiatives. And by that I mean, we're not, at least our solution, we're not an app farm. We don't want to come to the line at IT's door and say, everybody come with us. That's too big of a claim for us. But more specifically and more safely, we come to that line and we say, who here has a problem that's related to work or workflow? And the people who raise their hands, we say, come with us. We've got a faster, safer way for you to solve that class of problem for which you yourself are actually most qualified to address. But the fact that we've got this theory isn't the same thing as getting outside validation. We didn't want to be blinded by our own enthusiasm here. So we were very excited when we talked to Forrester Consulting and were able to engage them to help us find people who functioned by this title or by this role, and to help us determine whether or not these observations that we'd made in a series of customers that we saw really beginning to break out of the pack, really beginning to empower teams of business analysts and just clear years-long backlogs of digital transformation, whether this is something that everybody could do or whether it was just an anomaly. And so without further ado, I'm very excited to have John Rymer here, who I would say is the father of low code. I understand this may be his last public speaking engagement with Forrester, which is heartbreaking because of the value that he's delivered to the marketplace, but very exciting. We feel like we get to be a part of his big story. John is going to share the findings with us, and without further ado, I'll hand you over the baton here.
Thanks so much, Vaughn. Great setup, by the way. If we can advance the slide, the pattern, the milieu that you described is something I've been seeing for years, and it really exists. And we've reached, I think, as you highlighted, we've reached a critical stage. COVID has shown us just how important it is for us to tackle this problem, tackle this gap. So let's talk about what I call the citizen developer, the business developer, whatever imperative. Let's go to the next slide. We are all, the next slide, we are all in a new reality. And we actually started to see this years ago, and COVID has made it urgent. The new reality is, you know, Vaughn, as you were describing, we need a heck of a lot more software to digitize our businesses and our operations. COVID showed us just how fragile and just how error prone and subject to failure we are when we rely on paper and spreadsheets flying around an email, which we do. We routinely have done that to fill gaps in our automation. And we can't do that anymore. We can't do that and provide excellent service to our customers. We can't do that and sustain ourselves as businesses through uncertain times and changes and crises. So the situation is that we need to digitize all of our business activities. And we have, as you pointed out, we have a certain capacity, certain number of developers that are available to do that work. And by the way, they do a lot of other work too. They keep the accounting systems up and running, and HR, and all the core record keeping systems, and reporting on, reporting to the SEC, and all that work that's absolutely essential. They never have time or the resources to get to what's often called the long tail, which I'm showing in this slide on the right. In fact, what ends up happening is business people fill that gap. And they typically have done it in the past using spreadsheets, paper, hook or crook. That activity now needs to be digitized. It's really important that all those activities are digitized, because what they typically do, what they're actually doing, is running our operations. All of our customer support operations, sales operations, marketing, warranties and returns, eligibility, you name it. These are the critical operations that knit together the front end, the mobile app, the web app, whatever, the storefront, however we're interacting with our customer, and all that back end record keeping is a massive operations. And a typical organization, it's thousands of applications. So we don't have enough developers to build all this. How are we going to fill that gap? Well, one important, you can fill it with consultants, but one important answer is with our business experts. We like to call them business developers. A lot more people call them citizen developers, hence the title. But these folks, as we'll see, are very important to satisfy this, to fill this gap. Next slide. One of the problems we have is that we all know people that are, the spreadsheet jockey, or the office, the guy in the office or the gal in the office who's just really good with SharePoint or some other tool, and you go to them and they can help you, create a Band-Aid for an automation problem. But we actually don't know a whole lot about these folks and about what they do, about what they'd like to do, about how well they're being served today. Low code is a very important, part of their world, but is it actually, are the products actually serving them well today? So I'm very excited about this research that we did with HighGear, because it's the first research that I've seen that really, in a scientific way, goes about finding out about these people and who they are. And I just think it's very, very important research for all of us to understand. So without further ado, let's dive into what we found when we did the research. Next slide. So first, who among your colleagues is actually making apps? I'd be willing to bet that most likely two of the leading role players here that are making apps are managers and business analysts. Business analyst is a formal title in a lot of organizations. It's certainly a role, even if it's not the title. We all know what managers are. Now, why these people? Why these two role players? Well, first of all, they understand the business. This is why it's so important that they be involved and drive the solutions on the long tail that are automating operations. They actually know the data that's critical to that operation. They know the processes, the workflows. They know what are the priority problems that need to be solved first and which ones can wait. As we'll see, they already do a lot of software work. Unfortunately, in a lot of organizations, that software work is spreadsheets. And spreadsheets are, they're handy, but they're unmanaged, and they are not, they don't represent any kind of reusable, sustainable process or workflow at all. They're just a file. So one of the goals here is to capture that talent and move it into a sustainable and managed environment. And we'll see, folks do other work as well beyond spreadsheets. They actually want to do more software work, as we'll see. Isn't that interesting? That even though they don't come from technical backgrounds, they're not comp sci people, they actually see that software and making software is really critical to their success, and they like it. They want to do more. And then lastly, managers have budget and authority. And the fact is, these days, making apps does not require a huge multi-year commitment of millions and millions of dollars. You can make apps at a very low cost in time and money that's accessible to people on the front lines of business. So interesting. Let's go further and dive deeper into who these folks are and what they do. Next slide. So first, they already do a lot of work today. They're already involved in a lot of software work. So we asked this sampling of customers about a series of tasks and whether or not they do them. And what we're representing here are the folks that answered, I do these tasks very frequently or frequently. And so you can see at the top of the list, there's a lot of work on software that helps me collaborate with my peers, and software that helps me collaborate with partners and customers, and run projects. That's a big piece of this. But then you start dropping down into what are usually considered more application developer, professional developer activities, like process mapping, actually designing processes that will be automated. Process mapping is the first step of that process, automating workflows. Look at the number of folks that are managers and business analysts that are involved in that. Front end design is designing mobile apps, designing forms, designing websites, et cetera, et cetera. Heavy involvement by these folks in that software activity. And then the last two on the list are typically things that you would say, well, business people don't code. They don't write code. Well, yes, they do. Some of them are writing code. They're writing SQL, or they're writing JavaScript, or in some other programming language. That's the last finding, 51%, frequently or very frequently. And scripting is a form of coding. It's just a simplified form of coding. So here are folks that are they're business experts, but they've progressed in their jobs to learn software tasks already. They're doing this today. Next slide. Now, as Vaughn mentioned, a really critical activity in digitizing our businesses is automating workflows and automating business processes. So let's go to the next slide. I'm sorry, you did. I didn't. So digitizing business, critical activity is automating business processes and workflows. And so we asked this collection of managers and business analysts, do you do that work? Are you involved in automating business processes? And what we thought we might see is folks saying, yeah, I submit requirements. But, as Vaughn was describing, submit the requirements to a team of developers, and they go off and build something, and maybe they get it right and maybe they don't. But it turns out that these folks are not only submitting requirements, that is a part of their role, but the lighter bars here are actually implementation activities. So they're not only submitting requirements, they're involved in implementing those requirements in software. This is really interesting. It usually means that they're working on a team. Maybe there's a developer on that team, maybe not. Or they're working on some platform where they're actually building automated processes. As Vaughn said, these may be small processes, they may be very important, very larger processes, but all of these are in scope. So again, they're already doing technical work. If only we could further further empower them and make greater use of the talent and the drive that they have and the value they're providing. Next slide. Let's talk about how they feel and what their experiences are. So first of all, they're frustrated. They want to do more with technology to further their businesses and further their operations. And they're already doing some work, but they want to do a lot more. Look at the second finding here. They are essentially saying, I am not empowered to do more. I would like to do more. The first finding speaks to the point Vaughn was on earlier. Even if they see an opportunity to use technology to further a business process, if they have to rely on a professional developer or IT to get that done, they can't, the resources aren't available. Now, here's the irony of this. Apart from this study, the research I've been doing on low code the last 6-7 years, a whole lot of IT organizations get this, and they see that they're never going to get to all those needs on the long tail. They just don't have enough capacity. They recognize the value. They're very keenly aware of the value and the imperative of getting these operational processes automated, and they'd love to find a way to empower their business experts and bring them into the software strategy by providing them with tooling, advice, whatever else they need. So it's not like there's a war going on here. There's actually a search for solutions to empower these folks, and finding the right solution is very, very important and is becoming kind of not that controversial anymore. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, one thing I've always found about people working in companies is they want to be successful. They want to be successful in their jobs. They want their departments and ultimately their organizations to succeed. And there's no exception here with the managers and the business developers in this study. They see opportunities to make things better, and they want to use technology to make things better. And they actually like it. We found this consistently over the years, that working with technology is rewarding for them. So they see it as a part of their job that it makes their part of the organization more successful and better able to serve customers and so forth. And B, it's really satisfying work and they like it. And then the second part of this is they actually see it as a career path enhancer. So 70% said, I could grow my career and my earnings and my status if I was able to develop more technical skills. And we've seen this over the years, and I'm sure you have too. There's a example we like to cite, a woman who was working in an organization and was basically managing accounting. She now runs a group that digitizes operational processes in that organization. She's been promoted twice and gotten several raises up the stack. She's now the operations director. A huge benefit to her career because she was empowered to go forth and automate and use technology. So it becomes very personal and very valuable to folks. They're very motivated. Next slide. So they want to be empowered, but what's holding them back? So the findings we found are, first of all, resources. So I can't get, the IT guys don't have time for me, and I don't have the resources. I don't have the tools. Spreadsheets is a lousy tool for automating processes. It's basically spreadsheets plus email. It's really brittle, really a lousy tool. I need more tools. 77% said that. I need help from my technical colleagues. So maybe I don't want, maybe I'm okay with not having access to a developer full time. Maybe I just want to ask them questions, or maybe I just want to go to them for help when I get stuck. Well, nobody's available, and there's no way for me to know who to even approach to get that help. Training. So training. If we have to rely on big training programs, this isn't going to work very well. There's got to be access to training that works, and the products, I think, have to require minimal training. And then lastly, isn't this interesting? Low code has been a real phenomenon growing like a weed, for the last 6-7 years, and yet 67% said the tools I have are not easy enough for me to use. So there's work to be done. We can empower these folks much better with better products as we go forward. It's not a done deal yet. Next slide. So low code and what's often called no code, which are products really designed for these folks that are designed to allow them to make software without any scripting or coding whatsoever, have helped, but we're not done yet. There's even more that we can do. So we gave folks a list of, what they'd like to see going forward in terms of tools, in terms of, platforms that would empower them. And you can see, I like to call this the get stuff done list. There's at the top of the list is ease of use and streamlined operations, and the sort of, you can just hear business people talking, about just give me ease of use so I can just crack that nut with that problem in our operations. As you get down the list into more technical subjects, they're much less interesting. So this says to me, even though they're applying technology, they want it to be a very natural part of the way they think about data, the way they think about workflows, and they don't want to have to learn some kind of a special tool set or language or something like that. So we've done, we have empowered a lot of these folks, but we can do even better. And there's a real appetite for this. Next slide. This is a cautionary point here. One of the things you'll hear about business developers or citizen developers is, oh no, and Vaughn, you mentioned this, oh no, that sounds like shadow IT. That sounds like rogue IT. It isn't. There's no excuse for rogue IT or shadow IT anymore. The way to empower these folks is to move their work from unmanaged tools like spreadsheets to platforms, managed platforms. IT folks can say, dive in on that platform and see what are my business colleagues doing. They can help them manage applications, etc. So there's a real opportunity here to govern the activities of the business people who are making software. But in governing them, we don't want to crush them with onerous requirements. This is not what we used to call software development lifecycle that was applied to coding projects in IT. The governance has to have some give. It has to balance autonomy by the business experts with control, because we do want consistency. We want maintainable applications. We want to apply certain standards, like don't put a purple button on a black form, please. I can't see it. Let's do this. Let's do standards that actually work. So this is a challenge, guys. This is a new form of governance, really, that everyone is working through. Fortunately, the low-code products are super helpful here in providing visibility, and oftentimes the ability to provide guardrails and controls so that people don't make mistakes, and the consequences of their mistakes are trivial or really not anything to worry about. So next slide, and this is where I say thank you. I'll be here for questions. I hope I've helped, and be happy to answer any questions later on.
Yay!
Thank you, John. That was great. I really appreciate your insights there, the years that you have spent examining the need in the marketplace and how people within the business and can actually be elevated and escalated in this way. I think is really exciting, and I appreciated hearing your insights on this. It's validating for us, very exciting to see these results come in, much as we had hoped for. But we certainly suspended the verdict until we actually heard it come in, and it's exciting to have it come in where it has. We are excited as well about empowering people to get things done with this, and I think this is going to give us the opportunity here to move into a demo. Before we do this, I just want to put a quick reminder. We are going to have a Q&A session. I'm going to keep this to 5 minutes. I'm going to switch screens here, and Whitney is going to keep me on time. She's going to give me a reminder at 4 minutes so I don't get long-winded and ring the bell at me at 5 minutes. But this is a great time if you've got questions about the research that you've seen to please get them into the Q&A section now. There's actually a much larger report. We're going to get into that in just a moment as well. That's going to be available for download on our website within the next 24 hours. We're going to give you a URL that you can go and pick that up as well. And we'll also have a recording of this webinar available as well. So let me make a quick switch here.
Vaughn is so fancy, he's got 2 cameras. Nice job.
All right. If I've done this correctly, then we're prepared for a quick demo. Listen, I'm rather than giving you any setup on this, I'm just going to take you through. I figure the audience that we've got today, or people who are going to be interested in watching this as a recording later, are already either understanding the problem or understanding the kind of solution that they're looking for. So let's get in and take a look at it. I've got 4 browser windows open here where I've logged in as 4 different people into the same HighGear instance. This is, of course, a web-based application. We are single tenant, and what I mean by that is that we serve enterprise clients. We're hosted in the Azure platform, and we do not blend one customer's data with another. I do not want anyone to have to be concerned that no programming mistakes are made, and you know, therefore somehow your data ends up mixed with someone else or being visible to somebody else. We serve clients that have a lot of compliance requirements, and so that's kind of the world that we live in. Now, what you're seeing in here, I'm going to switch over to where I've logged in as somebody who's got administrative capabilities, and I'm going to jump right into the workflow design environment. And what I want you to see here is the form designer, for one thing. So this is kind of a 2D enabled form design tool where I can sort of reposition things on the fly. I can create additional fields or resources if I've forgotten to do that. And I can drag various items on as I create them and position them. Depending on the type of field, I'll get very simple parameters like, is this required or required before closed, or not required, or sophisticated parameters like, you know, who can see these particular fields, or where should it filter the information from. These forms will move their way through workflows, and the workflow designer, again, a drag and drop tool where I can grab lines and sections. But the difference between this and the typical drawing tool is that this is a live diagram where I can actually come in and drill into particular parts of the flow and set up sections that are also traceable. I can see live the number of items that are sitting at a particular node, and I can set up the criteria by which we exit a particular path. Here, if the status type equals closed, this is something that's already pre-populated based on the options I've created for a status. We're going to move to the next step. So when we're looking at processes, we're looking at a combination of forms and fields and statuses and workflows. And we can quickly get statistics about how many items are in each of these areas within the flow and what the average duration is to get through just by virtue of building these things. So this is kind of our administrative section. Most people who log in are not going to see this. You'll see we've got very easily configurable single sign-on settings here so that you can tie into whatever your favorite authentication system is. And then we've got hierarchy inside of the organization as we begin to look at the way the organization is structured. Within, for instance, our sample company Widget Inc. here, we can look at the various locations and see the departments, and by placing people in these departments, we create some natural aggregation and disaggregation so that people only see the work that they should see. I'm going to give you an example of that by quickly switching browsers here to Edge, where I'm logged in as Joe. Joe is a contractor in our marketing team. He only sees his universe. The team view is the 5 items that are assigned to him to work on. If we look at the top level functionality, he doesn't have any administration. He doesn't have access to the company report database. He can see messages that have been sent to him. And here's something the chief operations officer is asking about. He'd probably want to hop on that. There's panels in here where these messages are securely recorded along. We can blend in third-party applications, any third-party application. Now, this is getting the address from the client that we've selected here, so that if we were to select a different, oh, here, I'll just pick somebody else and hope they've got an address in here. It's going to take us to a different location. Here we don't have an address, it's taken us to the globe. But the point is here that as we go through this, you can see the relationship that's set up in the various fields and forms that someone has created for Joe to be able to complete work in the system. We can make change directly from this. We can treat it like a spreadsheet and edit the rows as we go. And Joe is also able to create additional gauges or charts to give him real-time access to the information that he cares about. I've switched here to Firefox, and I'm going to show you where Joan is having an interface that's slightly different. It's the same application, but her view is higher up in the hierarchy. She can see everything that everybody in the customer service department is doing. She likes to pay attention to their view. If she got shorter staffed or found that things changed, she could not only drill into this work, but she could also make changes to the dashboard very quickly, setting the limits to say, perhaps I'd like this to start turning yellow at 50 and red at 65. I've got everybody on vacation. And as quickly as we save that, those changes would take effect immediately, and you can see how they work. The data that we see down here, the color coding, the grouping, all of these things are intended to be configured by sophisticated users, power users, and then published out to the limited users, so that just by virtue of the organizational unit they're in, or the part of the company they're in, the work that they should be able to see, they end up getting the views they should see, which show them in real time how much work is in team 1, how much work is in team 2, allow them to see unassigned requests that a manager needs to get in and take a look at, or perhaps business rules could be set up to have that work flow appropriately. I've got another person here who I've logged in as Abigail, who's been added to the customer service team. Abigail is a member of Joan's team. So Joan doesn't see administration, but she said, look, I need somebody on my team who can make changes to our processes. So Abigail was brought in. When she goes to administration, if she goes to all processes, the only one she sees is the workflow for the customer account requests. Abigail wants to be able to make changes to that. Abigail wants to be able to troubleshoot where items are if they're stuck and drill into those particular items and provide assistance. Abigail can find everything she needs to do to learn how to use this application right within the help system, within HighGear University, a whole series of videos that make it easy for her to find what she needs to do in order to support her team. So she can see the same teams that Joan can see, but she can't see anything else in the organization. Whereas Bob, our COO, when he comes back and takes a look at the dashboard, he's at a much higher level. He's concerned about the cash needs forecast. So he is typically looking at a series of types of work here: capital expenditure request, client account request that he watches, new hire onboarding. He wants to make sure that we're getting people hired appropriately and that those things are not getting stuck. He's set up color coding to see things that are missing the due date. This is a sophisticated user getting a high-level enterprise look at the organization, but is able to drill into only the things that he cares about. He may say, I only want to pay attention to these things if they get above 10. He can set up notifications and all sorts of things. And so all of these forms that we create and we can use to track data, like a wire request, and where it's getting routed, what comments people have made along the way, the approvals, who's approved it and when. These are all things that are very easy, typically within hours or days, for a business analyst to get set up. And we're also getting that same information into quick reports that can be published out, and into a mobile interface, which will give us an alternate view, a way to get into that same high-level information, drill into those same requests, and either add or update a request while we're on the train on our way home. And there's no special training required for that. Maybe
Vaughn,
I've got...
Sorry, this is a great overview. I do have several people eager to ask questions, so I'm going to give you your 1-minute warning here.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
And we've got a, as you might expect, a portal as well, so that perhaps you've got people who you wouldn't want to have interact with the entire system. Maybe you just want to have them get into certain bits of work that are assigned to them as a contractor, or for external clients to be able to make a request. This is an example, and what it actually provides is the ability for our clients to tailor this in terms of color scheme, look and feel, and everything else, and blend it in. Again, it's just an example here, but it allows them to blend this in with their experience. So what I want to try to get across here in totality is whether it's Abigail coming in and working on the customer account request process, or being able to update one of the forms and make sure that from now on, nobody ever puts another one of these in without giving us the client request type. Whether it's Joe coming in and seeing what he needs to do, whether it's Joan seeing what her department is working on and what's at risk, or whether it's Bob being able to look at the whole organization hierarchically, we're creating a safe structure that allows the business analyst to contribute, the organization to feel safe, and IT to create the guidelines, the integration, the installation, and feel comfortable they've created something that for a particular class of problem, they're empowering their users to get faster and better at digital transformation than they've ever been before. I'll take a pause there.
Well, Vaughn, I just want to add one comment. You can't do what you just showed with spreadsheets and email. It's impossible.
Yeah, and in fact, many of the organizations that we've seen have migrated from that. I won't name any customers, but we've seen organizations that have spent years internally trying to tackle exactly this sort of thing. And the backlog builds and the backlog builds, and eventually at some point they'll engage HighGear, empower people who are or become business analysts throughout the change. And as they get up to speed on it, which is usually something that ranges from a few weeks to a few months at the very outside, we'll see them to begin to just clear that backlog and put these solutions up. And the great news is that not only are they doing them, but they stitch them together. Because of this whole hierarchical container, what I do over here to make sure I can reconcile our daily audits at a large hedge fund as step one, because that's my burning platform, can later become something minuscule, like maybe I've got trading floor people that have a problem with getting their expenses routed and paid. And because I've already put the people in another area to make HR requests, it begins to stitch together. And in hierarchy, HR is not seeing what the trading floor folks are doing. Trading floor folks are not seeing what the audit team is doing, but they're able to coexist in a system where work can move from organization to organization to organization within the company and get done in an unprecedentedly smooth way.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, let's get to the question board because we do have a very lively audience. Thank you so much, attendees, for dropping some great questions in our Q&A. John, I'm going to ask you this one. You said there's no excuse for shadow IT, and James wholeheartedly agrees with that. How do we convince our IT people that no-code solution won't create silos?
Won't create silos. Well, what we have to convince them about is that we have to show them how the platform helps govern the activities of business people. That, in my experience, is the gap in knowledge. They just don't, they typically don't work on low-code platforms, and so they really don't understand the capabilities of these products. So that's thing one. Thing two is, I've found that over the years that a lot of IT people, when you say application to them, your business people are going to create an application, they right away think of the most complex applications imaginable because that's what they work on. Mm-hmm. But you know, there's a lot of value in applications that are not the most complex applications out there. In fact, many of these applications, they don't require 24/7 availability. Right. They're not exposing data to the outside world. You know, they're so helping them understand that what sort of applications are going to be in scope here for business people is also another critical piece of the argument.
Fantastic. And related to that, James wants to know, we have rigid change control processes. Do you have any suggestions for how to iterate faster in tightly controlled organizations? So this sounds to me like another governance question.
It is. Essentially, you got to look at those change control. You got to look at that rigor in the change control mechanism. I'd be willing to bet that it is oriented to highly regulated and or highly sensitive applications. And again, it may be inappropriate for the kinds of applications that your business people can start to contribute. They may not be super sensitive, involving super sensitive data. They may be behind the firewall and not subject to, the nth degree of regulations. This is one thing that my colleague John Bratton-Sevick hits on, is that there's real risks and there's perceived risks.
Right.
And really drilling in on, hey, is there money running through this app? If not, the risks are different. Is anyone going to be hurt or die if this app doesn't function properly? If not, then don't apply the same level of rigor that you would for a critical health and safety kind of a situation, and then design governance that's appropriate.
Great. Vaughn, for you, based on the dashboard and the very brief demo that you just shared with us, John may already have his answer to this, but I want to bring it up. He asked, does a person in IT need to create the reports and dashboards, or can someone, and I'm using John's terms here, non-techie, do it?
That's a great question. The dashboards that you saw on the work list are tailored or targeted at an end user being able to do it for themselves. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to be comfortable getting in there and doing it without a tad bit of help from somebody who's a little bit more power user oriented than them. But part of the reason that we've built our system so that a power user can create these dashboards and then publish them out to their team is because we've often got somebody like Joan, who's that departmental manager, who's very comfortable wielding that technology and quite frankly may not even want her newest employee trying to figure out how to configure a dashboard. So she just says, here's what I want you paying attention to. These are the KPI we're going to measure you by at the end of the month. Stare at them all the time while you're doing your work. See how it's going. So really, we do want those people to be able to make the changes themselves, but not all organizations do. And so we've targeted at that lowest common denominator, but enabled it as well to be something that's distributed.
Thank you. Mr. Rymer, back to you for this one. And I'm giving you a composite of a few different questions here. If I don't already have a business manager, does this mean I need to hire one? And or what other skills or types of people make the best HighGear administrators or a no-code administrator of any sort?
Ideally, you won't have to hire. Ideally, you're going to have people on staff who are motivated and capable of doing this work, working on platform and creating apps, making apps. Ideally, you won't have to hire someone. You may, if you determine that, let's say you've got someone who just says, you've got people that just say, I don't want to do this work. Software scares me, I don't want to do this. Then you've got to go out and bring in some folks who are really gung-ho and who are really ready to go here. When you look for people, just go to your people, in your organization that today are your spreadsheet jockeys. That's a great place to start. Say, hey, we're going to make you much more powerful. We're going to give you much more powerful tools. We're going to put you in a position where we can give you help. That's a great place to start. The other thing to look for, it's not so much technical skills, it's problem solvers. People that love to dive into a business problem and solve it and figure it out. And, they'll pick up. The tools basically allow them to learn very, very quickly. We find this all the time. People pick up one of these tools or one of these platforms, and within a week, they've created something really amazing, and it just never stops. They just keep going because they really are motivated to solve problems, and that's what gets them going. And if you enable them, off they go.
A business leader that I respect very much says, if a person on your organization is invested enough to complain, they're probably invested enough to help solve as well. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. And it's a really critical point. I'm glad you brought that up. Another really important point here is adoption. I mean, how many folks on the call have been in the position where you make the company makes a technology investment and everybody turns their noses up at it and says, I'm not using that. That's horrible. I don't want to use that. If business people are invested in creating the solutions, you bet they'll use them.
Yep.
You bet they will,
What they
because they
build,
own
they'll
them.
use.
They own them, and they make them better over time. So it's a way to get a lot of bang for your technology investment buck as well.
Could I add something to that before you switch, Whitney? I'm
Sure.
just, and we see in nature so many ecosystems emerge autonomously, right? The snail builds his home and somebody else comes along and takes leverage of that shell, and before you know it, you've got a coral reef in there, right? Businesses do the same thing. And I heard a great speaker one time say, if you want to find who you should promote to leadership in your organization, look for the people that are already leading. I think the same exists here. If you want to figure out who you should empower to improve the processes in your organization, look at somebody who's already trying to do it with the broken tools that they've got. Those people are going to get very, very excited to do it. And in most cases, they're going to be so time efficient at doing it because they know what the problem is and they're going to be focused on the result. It doesn't create the need for another person. But I have seen cases, we've got a good sized commercial real estate investor where the person who was kind of an administrative, very technically creative administrative person said, I'll do this. And her goal was just to collapse two applications they were using that were frustrating into one. That was the goal. 2 years later, she presented at one of our user conferences, and at that point they had 18 workflows. I hear now they have 40. And what's happened is people found out how quickly she could solve problems, and we later learned that she had collapsed 7 or 8 critical applications into one platform as the organization's trust for her developed. Well, what happened though is they ended up having to backfill her with a junior administrative person because she was adding so much value to the organization. So it wasn't a negative in that case. The value add was significant, both for the organization and for her. She loved it. She felt great job satisfaction and felt really meaningful in terms of her work in there. And it was an exciting story. But it's atypical that we see people need to add headcount to get these things done. The people who want the problem solved are so invested and excited to invest even sometimes their own time into it once they know how to use the tool to improve the processes. That it's not like they don't want somebody else brought into the organization to do it. They want give me the wand.
Your phrase hidden talent, Vaughn, is spot on in that. You just think about the folks out there, particularly it is generational in some cases. The younger people are really comfortable with digital tools, but not always. It's not always generational, but they're everywhere. We just need to empower them. It's amazing. It's just an additional source. There are governance challenges. I get that, but the talent is there.
The challenges are manageable once you find the talent and match them with the right tools.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to come back to each of you for a wrap-up statement in just a moment. I have a few questions that seem fairly yes or no type answers. So a brief rapid-fire round. Ready, gentlemen? I say brief, and Vaughn, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. I knew where that was going.
And of course, to anyone on the call who is intrigued by this concept, if you want to talk with the folks at HighGear, I'm sure they'd welcome that conversation to talk about your specific use case. But let me just run through the Q&A here. Can HighGear be installed on-prem?
Yes.
Great. How long does it typically take for workflows to be set up and deployed for a use case that helps us get out of our email and respond to this high volume of requests?
But by the way, we're primarily in the cloud, but also available on-prem easily.
Okay.
We typically see our customers, their first problem, the thing that's driving them crazy, is what they put their learning curve around. We'll typically see a customer get into production within a few weeks, and most of that is just them getting the time to get scheduled through the training class, and then looking at some help files. We've got customers who get into production before they go to training. We make training available online. People get through that, but typically it's a matter of weeks, and they've got their first process up and running. What we find is they'll go to that second process of equal difficulty 2 or 3 months later and be through it in days.
Mm-hmm.
And if you catch them a year later, they're often making a new process in hours. And it's the acceleration of, I already get the core concepts and I can reuse, I can copy a form, I can copy a workflow that I already did or a section of it and just change it. Sorry, that was not a yes or no answer, nor was it short.
By the way, you can't do that with Excel. I hate to keep, it's a broken record, but there is no reuse.
Excel
There
was
is no
built for
building.
something specific. It was never built to manage processes. It was meant to manage numbers and formulas. It's very different stuff, and that's okay. All right, it's great that less technical people can configure the processes, but all of our resources are Rona swamped. I love that term. Are there HighGear resources that are able to help us get up to speed?
Yes, we have professional services and training resources. We treat them like a deli in a commercial building. We want it there for your convenience, not to make you feel like you have to use it.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. In the interest of time, I recognize there are a few questions I'm not able to get to, but I do want to respect the time limits. And I'll come back to each of you, John first and then Vaughn, for any closing thoughts, words of encouragement, or true insights that we should take back to our leadership team to help us get this done.
You want me to start?
Yes, please.
Yes. I believe this is the next big opportunity for advancing automation, advancing business automation. I think this is how we get to digital. There's been a lot of work because of the crisis, the COVID crisis. There's been a lot of work compressed in a very short time to advance digital business and across our clients. But this is really the key to unlocking the next big wave of value. I just caution you, governance, and don't expect that you're going to just flip a switch and do this overnight. There's a lot of change, including culture change that comes along with this. But you don't have to get through all that change at scale right off the top. Get started, learn, keep going, learn, add to your experience, scale up. It's a multi-year journey, but I don't see any other way we're going to get to digital business, guys. I just don't.
You might as well start sooner rather than later. Yeah. Thank you, John. Vaughn.
Yeah, I would really chime in on that same line of thinking. We really encourage our customers to plant a flag and start small. Find a team that has a burning platform, a problem they just can't wait to get off of, and that is eager to adopt new technology, and empower them to get something done and let them make the people around them jealous. Adoption really is that magic thing. And so you already get an advantage by having people highly invested, but you'll gain even more advantage by having them look over and see that somebody else has that advantage and they don't. HighGear offers a lot of governance capabilities. We've surprised our clients. We serve some of the world's largest financial services organizations, energy companies, and government agencies. And often our champions have been a frustrated business leader, a frustrated business analyst, an enterprise architect who says, this is a new way of thinking. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get you through the hurdles in here. But in fact, time after time, we've shown that the fact that we have a deep IT background has allowed us to get through all of those hurdles and really show people we bring an extraordinary balance of capabilities oriented towards solving the problem that business analysts want to address, with a safety net that makes IT and business feel comfortable. And to what John said, it still requires a lot of thought and process and change control, but it's worth it. What we've seen for the organizations who've done this, who've empowered this sleeper talent, is that they've been able to accelerate in an area where their competitors are still trying to figure out how to catch traction. And we love making that happen for people in the market. If you're interested in more, we'd love to hear from you. I've got a slide up there just showing that the highgear.com/sleeper talent report, that will be up within 24 hours. In the meantime, I think it tells you that it's coming soon, but we didn't want it to get out before the webinar. We'd encourage you to come back if you've got colleagues or friends that you think would enjoy this. There'll be a recording as well as a copy of the report out there. And we just want to thank you so much for your time today. And if you are interested in more information about HighGear, we would love to hear from you. Come on out to highgear.com. We are not a high pressure organization. It's not who we are. We're about serving the industry, serving clients. If we fit, the product will sell itself. So we just facilitate that through the opportunity to answer your questions and show you the tool. And we'd love the opportunity to do that. Thank you so much for your time today.